Hey everyone. Okay, so in this video, I'm going to show you how to draw 4 different types of trees, and then we're going to watercolor them at the end. So what I'm doing here is I'm just sketching out the trees in pen, and for this you want to actually use Sharpies, or you might use ballpoint pens, but definitely don't use Micron pens because they'll get destroyed with the tooth of the paper, because I'm working on Arches watercolor paper. Now, the trick when you're drawing trees is that you want to just give an impression of the tree. You definitely don't need to draw every leaf or, in the case of a palm tree, every single part of it. You're trying just to give the sense of it and look at sort of some of the bigger shapes. So you don't want to get bogged down with too many details. Now for the deciduous one, I'm thinking a little bit more also about the trunk and the structure. And so I'm not even going to put a lot of leaves. I'm really just wanting to make sure that there's a sense of the overall shape. So think about in terms of shape and think in terms of sort of like big areas and shapes that you can put instead of thinking about every single leaf, because we're going to be coming back in with watercolor. So we're going to use the watercolor to get some of those colors in there. And now I'm drawing a winter tree, and that's just one with the trunk and branches. So I'm not worrying at all about the leaves here. And I'm going to really just focus on the overall shape. And again, a few little indications of the branches. But again, you don't need to go overboard with every little branch. And in fact, if you do too much, sometimes it actually looks less realistic. So just again, just a nice impression. So now we're going to add the watercolor, and I mixed up a little bit of sap green with a tiny bit of the phthalo green, which are the 2 greens that I have right there. And one thing that you can play around with is your different brushes and the different types of marks that they make. But again, you don't want to overdo this. It's just a little indication of some color that you're laying on top. So for this one, I'm using an angled brush. The one before I used a rounded brush. Okay, so now we're going to add some backgrounds. What I'm starting by doing is just mixing up some alizarin crimson and ultramarine. And this is going to give a nice purple, which I want to use on the winter one because I want it to kind of look like a winter sunset. So I start by just going over it with a light wash. And then I take my wet brush without any color on it, and I just sort of like start dragging it up and painting in that upper part, and that will create that ombre effect. And now if you add a little bit of orange on the bottom, it'll make it look more like a winter sunset. We're going to do the deciduous tree next, and what I'm doing is I'm just mixing up some of the cerulean blue, and I'm going to go over the background with just a very light wash. Now when you do this, you don't want to go too much over what you've already painted, but if you just do a wash in the background, it will be fine. So if you put down a little bit too much water, as I did right at the beginning, what I do is I just take my brush and I put it on a towel for a second and then get some of that water off the brush, and then you can move it around. So that happens all the time. It's not a big deal as long as you don't want to put too much water on the paper. So that's just how to fix that if you happen to do that. And how deep the blue is depends on how much water you add to your pigment. So in this one, behind the pine tree is a little bit of a deeper blue, like it's just not quite as diluted as that first one. Now for the palm tree, I'm going to add a really deep wash of alizarin crimson. And what I'm doing here is I put a lot of paint on the brush, and I'm just going over it from the side and sort of like sweeping upward. And then to make a gradation, what you can do is just take some water on your brush and move it upward again, and that'll sort of like drag the wash upward and have it be a gradation from dark to light. I'm adding a little bit of cadmium yellow here, and then I'm done. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe if you like this, and I'll see you next time.